to think that one heart yearns loud enough to make things right and join us all in these trying times. Stand up for love and hold tight to its creed. The road may wind, but trust where it will lead. Yeah, yeah. 'Cause love is a mighty power, even in the darkest hour, and every disguise. Watch love arise. Watch love arise. Oh, do everything you can, but don't despair. No. Be a voice of reason, yeah, be the changing season, but don't ever lose heart. Don't you ever lose heart. No. Stand up for love and hold tight to its creed. The road may wind, but trust where it will lead. Yeah, yeah. 'Cause love is a mighty power, even in the darkest hour, and every disguise. Watch love arise. 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 Thank you.
Happy month of love. Happy month of love. The theme for this month is living lovingly. And last week we talked about living in a very big way, letting a large love, to live largely, move through us. And it's called agape. I always thought it was agape because that actually sounds so much more sophisticated, but it's not. I was corrected by one of our Greek-speaking members. It's agape, which sounds to me like something you should put in a fishbowl. Agape. I mean, doesn't it? Am I wrong? But, you know, you can have big love. Big love means nothing can keep you from loving. It's a way of being able to embrace and include anything and to move through everything. It's victorious. It's God itself. And it's a little too big to enjoy day to day. So it's sort of like, for those of you that have taken Beyond Limits, there's this idea that we can have of the universe, of Spirit of God, and yet we know it when it becomes intimate and particularized through us. So doesn't that look like part of the glyph? So here we go. Well, so love can be particularized in different forms. And today I want to talk about the form that the Greeks called pragma, which is the basis of the word pragmatic. It's like practical, realistic, here and now love. And it's the love that is shared between you and a significant other. And a lot of those people that I really admired had significant others. I'm a student of Hafiz and a student of Rumi and a student of Jesus, and they all had significant others. That's for some of you that are going, really? Robert? I have some gospels that were not canonized, which actually said that Mary Magdalene was Jesus' significant others. At least he was kissing her on the lips. That's what they said, but anyway. seems pretty significant to me. But that's not the conversation for today. The conversation for today, that's just something else. That's good chit chat, but what's it mean to you, really? How many, you know me, I'm not a chit chatter. What I care about is what I can know that will improve my experience of this thing that I call life. Since I'm still living, I want a greater experience of it, a richer experience of it, a fuller experience of it, this thing called life. So, today I will want to talk about partnership as a spiritual practice. Yay. You know, and it's kind of interesting that I'm doing this today, and I've had similar talks once a year around Valentine's Day, which is partnership as a spiritual practice. Now, it occurred to me last night that this is totally weird, because I also talk about employment as a spiritual practice, and we actually have a Better Business Breakfast. So once a month, people have a meeting and discuss how they can put spiritual principles into their work life and let their work life be an avenue through which they grow spiritually. And once a year, I talk about that in relationship. But hopefully, for those of you that have a relationship, you notice that you spend just as much time with your beloved, well, except for you two, and they know that I'm not making fun of them. Most of us spend just as much time with our beloved or a significant person as we do at work. So it should all be a spiritual practice. And I realized that one of the reasons that I did this is that I was influenced by the works of Ernest Holmes. And when I first got into New Thought and I just loved the teaching, Ernest Holmes was very willing to tell me how to use spiritual principles to succeed, and very, very, very little about how to have a relationship. And I certainly hadn't learned it from my parents. So how was I to do it? Now, how many of you have noticed, how many of you are familiar with Ernest Holmes? Great. How many of you have noticed he has a lot of books? So I read his books on success. It worked. Then I looked in his books for wisdom on how to have a loving, powerful, sustainable relationship. He said one thing. If you want a friend, be a friend. That was it. Quote, unquote. If you want a friend, be a friend. Oh. I could have figured that out. And if you find more, if it's hidden somewhere, let me know. And I'm trying to figure this out because I needed help. I was a relationship flunky, meaning I flunked most of them. So how was I to do this? And what I think in all of, my understanding of him, knowing that he came from a very large family, all boys, it was either 9 or 11 boys. They were not wealthy. They were very, very much on the edge of survival. And so I think that when he discovered spiritual principles that could be applied to everyday life, he applied them right away to make his life more financially sustainable. And then he wrote about it. And so that was his interest, and that's what he wanted to share. I think he already knew about relationships and wondered why anybody would want to talk about them. I did. Does that make sense? How many of you wish that you had had some sort of coaching at least once? Well, I had to go to other places to be coached. I had to look to other wisdom teachers, because God bless Ernest Holmes. He thought I hear that he had a fabulous relationship with his wife. I think he just thought that this was a given. Bless him. So I went to other wisdom teachers, and so I want to talk to you a little bit about what I discovered in from those wisdom teachers and my progress in this area. And hopefully one of these ideas and one of these wisdom teachers will also speak to you. And then we're going to have a couple's blessing. So I want to begin with the first wisdom teacher that shared with me what I thought was really important for my soul, which is Kahlil Gibran. Now, Kahlil Gibran wrote this. He said, work is love made visible. Work is love made visible. And that just resonated with me. That's like, oh, of course it is. In its highest form, work is love made visible. And I think that that's also the impetus for me to begin the Better Business Breakfast so many decades ago, or at least a decade ago, or more than a decade ago, to just realize that we could love what we do, and when we love what we do, it comes back to us multiplied, pressed down, and running over. So if I could believe that, then I had to believe what he wrote about marriage. Because when I was talking about relationships, I had no trouble attracting them. So if anybody wants to attract, I can pray and you'll attract. Keeping, different story. Maintaining, ending I was really good at too. I was a good beginner and a good ender. Middles, not so much. But I wanted a marriage. I wanted something that was long-term, that was lasting. And so I also turned to Kahlil Gibran. And all of you will get this when you leave today, but I want to share with you an essay, a poem, a writing. It comes in 3 parts. And I'd like you to just sink into your chair and consider these ideas by Kahlil Gibran. And if you've read, how many of you are familiar with him? Great. And if you're familiar with him, you probably know that something in there touched you, and it seems so true. So if he was right on 1 or 2 things, he might be right on this too. So let's go with marriage. You were born together, and together you shall be forever. You shall be together when the white wings of death scatter your days. You shall be together even in the silent memory of God. But let there be spaces in your togetherness, and let the winds of heaven dance between you. Now, when I read this, the first impression that I'm getting from him is that somehow we had some sort of soulmate. You know, that there's a soulmate, that there's a person that you are bound to be with and that you're meant to be with. And man, I just think that's a bunch of hooey. And it's really enticing. It's really an enticing idea. I want my soulmate. Man, this is why it's hooey. First of all, if you are my soulmate, you better behave. And then if you don't have your soulmate, you're going around looking for your soulmate. Am I my soulmate? Are you my soulmate? Are you my soulmate? I wonder if she's my soulmate. Is he my soulmate? You're like, what? What? Like, you meet somebody and they have to pass some sort of soulmate test? Or there's all these sparks, blah, 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 which, by the way, the Greeks had a word for. It's called eros. Da-da, 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 da-da. You know, that kind of woohoo. And because we got the woohoo going on, we think they're their soulmate. So what, after the woohoo, you find out you don't even like them? So what happened to the whole idea of soulmate? Now here's the idea. I honestly think that what he's saying is true, but not in the way we sometimes interpret it. I said, sometimes I think it's true, even though it's not in the way we interpret it. I like it. Suri wasn't on it. Suri, get with it. Here we go. Now, let me tell you about my experience and my download about soulmate. I had a download. How many of you have had downloads? Now, even though you raise your hand, you have what you call a download. I wanted to explain what I think a download is for me. It's when I know something and it came out of nowhere. I don't know how I know it, but all of a sudden I know it. And it's like it wasn't a process. It wasn't, there was no logic in it. And yet, once I got it, it's logical. It's not something that I'm convinced of. It's not something that comes from my past or my upbringing. It is something that's like totally new being born in me, which is the way the universe works when you are really willing to listen. You get downloads. So I had this download, and it came out of misery. So God bless misery. God bless misery, because usually when you're miserable enough, you actually become expansive and open enough to have a new idea, because the old ideas are what's causing you to be miserable. So I was miserable. And it was on, okay, so it's a good thing that we had agape last week, because that means that there's no judgment, right? You're all living in no judgment and inclusivity. Okay, great. So now I'll tell you. I had just divorced, or a long time ago, divorced my fourth husband. I said I ended things well. And then I had dated a bunch of guys, and I was still a flunky, and they were going nowhere. I mean, it was like nothing. It was like, I really fail at this. Either I do or they do, and I'm enlightened, so I guess I do. But it really looks like they do. And so I thought my picker was broken. I didn't know how to pick them. And if I had just been able to pick better, then I would have been able to live better, and we would have been the right one. So obviously, I just hadn't found the right one. Dear God, who's the right one? When will the right one show up? And I had been having this conversation with God. I was miserable, and I was demanding some answers. It's okay to demand answers of the universe and be demanding, because at least you're in communication. So I remember the time of the download, and a download is so pivotal that you can't ever forget it. Like, I can go into it immediately. And I was in my condo. I had just come out of the elevator door had opened. I'd come out in this big lobby. I was about to go down my hallway, and right there in the middle of the lobby, I got it. Wow! See, I'd been looking for the one. And this download came and said, Kathianne, you can love anyone. Well, my heart was expansive, and it felt like, yes, I could love anyone. I mean, it was like a thing like, yes, I could love anyone. But I didn't believe it. There's still part of my brain that was questioning. And so I pulled into my memory all of those losers that I had let go of. And sure enough, they were lovable. Lovable, 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 lovable. Now, this is blowing what's left of my mind. And so I said, if I can love anyone, I could love the next person off the elevator. And then, luckily, intelligence spoke and said it might not be appropriate. So I said, so how do I pick? And this voice said, pick the one that you want to play with for the rest of your life. See, we got to get this idea off of, if I find the right one, it'll be perfect. No, anyone could be the right one. But who do you want to spend time with? Do you see, it takes the onus off the big search. Will you get it right? If we go by this, everybody's right. Whoever you're spending time with and you have spent time with was right at the time. For you've been together forever. The way I like to look at it is, if you're with someone or have been with someone, you have business together. And you came together to bless each other or learn from each other, but you had business together, and it was right. And what occurred to me as I was sitting over there, and I didn't add this the first service, is what I'd love for you to do right now, because it only takes a twinkling of an eye. Transformation can happen in a twinkling of an eye. How many of you would love to be transformed in this moment? Great. So I want you to remember somebody that you left behind and judge them, and I want you to love them now. No, you can do it. See, because honestly and truly, they were right for the time, and if you choose, you are better because of it. And if you choose not to be better because of it, you still really have business together. See, every single person that I was with was right at the time, and if I look at it, I gained something, gained something, gained something, gained something, gained something. It was a gaining experience. It was only a loss if I say so. And so you take back your power when you go, wow, man, we did great stuff together. If they were abusive, guess what? You learn to say no and get out of here. And you are a wimp until you did. And some soul loved you so much that they said, you know what? You've been spending lifetimes as a wimp. I love you so much, I'm going to come across as a bad person. And you're finally going to say no to me, and you will be changed forever, and the rest of eternity, you will have your power back. Now, thank me for it. And if somebody rejected you, then love them too, because you know what? You were born with the idea that you were who you were with. I had that one. How many of you, especially women, you were who you were with? I was raised to believe I was who I married. So watch out who you married, because I had no personality, no future of my own. It was just who I was with. Guess what? You get enough rejection, you realize, I'm not that. God bless them. There is a lesson and a blessing in everything. Yes, it is very true. I get it. Khalil Gibran was on something when he said, you were born together, and together you will be forevermore. And you shall be together when the white wings of death scatters your days. Why? Because there's one life, and we play together with different people, playing different positions, playing different identities, so that we can learn to be our own great self. Praise God that they were in your life, and praise God they're not anymore. Because then you take yourself back. The other way to look at this then is that each one of those people were probably old souls. So you think of them as soul to soul. Not personality, not the trappings, but soul to soul. And bless them. Because most likely, if they are in your life in a significant way, something more is going on than meets the eye, and something is going on deeply below the surface. So you bless them, old soul to old soul. Khalil Gibran goes on to say, love one another, but make not a bond of love. Bond of love. Let it rather be the moving sea between the shores of your soul. Fill each other's cup, but drink not from the same cup. Give one another of your bread, but eat not from the same loaf. Sing and dance together and be joyous, and let each one of you be alone, even as the strings of the lute are alone, though they quiver with the same music. So, this reminds me a lot of something that I read at most commitment ceremonies and weddings I've ever done, which says, it happens all the time in heaven, and someday it will happen again on earth. When men and women who are married, and men who are lovers, and women who give each other light, often in heaven they will get down on their knees and while so tenderly holding their lover's hand, with tears in their eyes, will sincerely speak and say, "My dear, how can I be more loving? How can I be more kind?" It happens all the time in heaven, and someday it will happen again on earth. Heaven being a state of mind, that's a beautiful state of mind. So, for those of you that are on our email list, I sent out a weekly spiritual practice, or it's being sent out today. And it says, in essence, that the spiritual practice for this week is to outlove the other. The spiritual practice for this life is to outlove the other. Fill each other's cups, but not drink from the same cup. Just play the game of love, because if God is love and God is everywhere and incarnate in everyone, God is the love that is showing up in your life as that significant other. And so you love them, and then you're loving God, and that's what your job is. That's your assignment. And the love will come back to you, but not necessarily through them, because otherwise you're making them your God and them your source, and that's idolatry. Sorry. And it's way too much to expect. But you can expect that the universe will reward what you give, and it will come in all sorts of ways from lots of different people. But your assignment, your target, don't call them that, dear target. I'm going to love you. But your target to focus on is that person that you've decided to share your life with. And can you outlove them? Can you say, how can I be more loving? How can I be more kind? Now, frustration happens. How many of you ever, no, not in this current relationship, but in previous relationships, how many of you have been frustrated? Right. Frustration can happen when we get some of our priorities and needs either mixed up, confused, or not met. Now, I got this from, I forgot her name, but she's supposedly a world-famous family and relationship counselor or therapist. And so what she said is that the human needs, beyond the Maslow needs, there are 6 human needs, and the first 4 are certainty. How many of you like certainty? I just want to know how it is. How many of you really get upset when what you think is certain doesn't happen, like on November 8th? We like certainty. Oh, but here's the deal. We also need variety. Right? Then we also need significance. We need to feel like we are significant to someone. And we also need love and connection, love as connection. We need to feel connected. We need to feel significant. We need to feel some certainty in things, and we need variety. And boy, that can cause suffering. Because especially if we have put all of our eggs in the lover basket, and they don't make us feel significant enough, and they don't make us feel valued and connected enough, if they don't do this for us, if they don't change when we want change and stay the same when we want them to stay the same, we can be incredibly frustrated. Isn't that the truth? Thank you. The two of us agree. But here's the deal. All of those are trumped. Oh. This is not a political statement. All of those are superseded when you fulfill another need, the other 2 needs. These 2 needs satisfy the other 4 needs. When you're focusing on 2 other needs, the others are not important. And those 2 needs are, am I growing spiritually, and am I contributing? Contribution fills you so that you don't need the other to make you significant or feel connected or stay the same and give you stability. or satisfy your need for something new. In fact, there's a whole nother class I might do. Well, but this we got enough to talk about. But I have a whole new other riff on the seventh commandment. How many of you know the seventh commandment? How many of you have heard the Bible? Only a few of you over there raised your hand. Is this scaring me, brothers and sisters? It's okay. So I won't talk about the seventh commandment then. All right. So when you contribute, when your target is the person in front of you, the person you spend your time with, and your emphasis on contributing to them and out of that spiritual growth, the rest of the stuff gets handled. Fill each other's cup, but don't drink from the same cup, because honestly, they are not here to support you. You are here to support them and outlove each other, and know that then you will always be supported, which comes in the next stanza, which says, give your hearts, but not into each other's keeping. For only the hand of life can contain your hearts. And stand together, yet not too near together. For the pillars of the temple stand apart, and the oak tree and the cypress grow, but not in each other's shadow. So give your hearts, but not into the other person, because what you're giving is your heart. You're giving your heart to love, and love is immense, and love will always take care of you. So when you give your love, you can give it and give it and give it, and know that you'll never be depleted, and you'll never lose, because love must always come back to you. That gives your lover freedom to be who they are and do the same thing to you, because you've already instigated. What goes around comes around. But man, have we expected a whole lot from that other. No, not you, because you're in this church. But you know people that do that. So as a relationship flunky, I knew that I could love anyone. I knew that I got to pick who I was going to play with, and that Spirit would figure it out and bring me someone that would support me through the rest of my life, and I would support them. But I still didn't know how to do this thing, so I finally turned to prayer. I could have had a prayer. Anyway, thank you. So I turned to a covenant, and a covenant is a contract. It's something that you say you'll do, and then the other says it will do. It's a contract between two entities. And I made a contract with God. And this comes out of Scientific Christian Mental Practice, chapter 5, for those that are interested. And so the covenant that I took on was, I covenant with the Holy Spirit for love. And I will do nothing to love or be loved. For all is the irresistible action of the Holy Spirit within me. So I gave myself to love, and I always have to give myself to love, because if I'm feeling unloved, if I'm feeling frustrated, then what I need to do is give more to love and give more attention and being more kind and cooperative to the one that I love, and then love comes back in all sorts of ways, because there is still agape. Oh, agape. Sorry. There's still agape. Still can't say that without smiling. See, we can love and not be possessive. And as we just allow the flow to happen, we get to trust that God knows not only how to love through us and how to be loved as us, it also knows how to bless the union. So what I'd like to do now is bless unions. So for all of you who would love to be blessed and are willing, because this is very intimate. This is intimate to be up here so that others of us can bless you. For those who feel comfortable, I invite you to spread out through the center, come up on the stage. Lauri's going to help you. Move over there and in front. So I'd love to invite you up. But you do need to, I am going to tell you where to stand, because I did in first service and it drove me crazy. So I'd love some people up here. Great, love it. And some people in front, and you can spread out. And then we'll get to have quite a few people. That's why we're spreading you out quite a bit. So I'd love to also have some people on that platform over there. We've got people on the platform, the lower platform. And so we can have some people up here. I want you to have some room so that you're not on top of each other, so you can kind of create a little cone of intimacy. I know it's going to be funny with all these people looking at you. We have a room for a couple up here. And let's see, I've got quite a bit of rooms for people that want to come up the stairs. Thank you. That's lovely. Right over here. Right here. Great. Cool. And anyone else? Yes. Now, I love how you're all sort of lined up. How sweet. How about I move some of you forward so you've got a little more room to yourself? How about that? And let's see. Could I have a couple up here? Great. And could I get you guys to move here? Great. So that you're not quite on top of each other? That's all right? Now, I know that there's a lot of people here, but I also know that between two people, there is a connection that makes it so sweet. So I'm going to ask you to say some vows. Well, actually, I'm going to say the vows, and I'm going to ask you to answer. Now, this is the way that I would like you to answer. Instead of both saying whatever I'm going to ask you to say together, I'd like you to take the time to let one answer and then the other. So if the answer is I do, one person will look at the other and say I do, and then the other person will say I do. So it's not together. Because remember, there's spaces between you. Take a deep breath, and I will tell you what to say because you might get all in a rush and not quite say it correct. So that it's as meaningful. Oh, by the way, I want you to meet Achilles, who told me it's agape. So, the rest, to make this part of something, I'd like the rest of you to stand up as witness. I want you to witness the power of love. I want you to look at them and just hold them in your hearts. So all of you are being witnessed by all of us and being held in our hearts. This is what I'd like you to consider and then answer to the other. Do you take this person whose hands you hold as your loving partner in life? And you will answer, I do. And then, will you allow the Spirit of love to bless the bond between the two of you? And your answer is, I will. Are you willing to try each day to be more loving and be more kind? And the answer is, I am willing. Are you willing to let your beloved grow and change and evolve, knowing that you can trust love and trust the power of love? And the answer to this is, yes, I am. And then, by the power vested in me, by the love in this room, and through the witnesses of all these people and the power that they are generating in this room, I now pronounce you blessed and blessed and blessed and mightily blessed. And you may kiss. I want to thank you all. You may be seated. Thank you so much for sharing your commitment with all of us. I feel blessed just to have seen this huge amount of love that gathered in front of us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. That's incredibly brave. So if you see any one of these people after the service, please thank them. I don't know about you, but it's gutsy. Gutsy to be up here. So let's just end in prayer. And a prayer is just a conversation within ourselves that allows us to unite with something greater than ourselves. The word from the Aramaic that we have translated as prayer, the base of that word, the root of that word, meant to set a trap. So prayer is setting a trap for grace. It's setting a trap for blessings. So let's open up ourselves and set a trap for greater love. And the prayer that I will use, and I encourage you to just say yes to it, to make it your prayer. The prayer that I will use is a covenant. I covenant with the Lord of my being for love. And I will do nothing to love or be loved. For all of that is the irresistible action of the Spirit of love within me. And I speak my word that it lifts me and empowers me and encourages me. And I know that it does it for every person here, that love is lifting us up. It's not a song. It's not a phrase. It is a reality. For love is the very activity of the living Spirit Almighty moving through each and every one of us, whether we say we're in relationship or whether we think we should be or whether we never want to do it again. It is the power that allows us to know our own infinite self and give increasingly to all that is called life. And so I give thanks to that irresistible action of the Holy Spirit in us is moving us into greater expressions of life itself and the magnificence that we were born to be. And so it is.